Hi Subhashni.
Hi ma'am.
I got your profile in Naukri. Can you introduce yourself?
Okay ma'am. First of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity to introduce myself. Myself Subhashni. I did my graduation in the Kaveri Engineering College in the branch of Agriculture Engineering. In my college days, I did a project entitled with a field crop fertilizer dropper that is related to agriculture. On my college days, I had done a internship and presentation and workshop that all are related to agriculture. After that, I am interested in Devops course. I had completed Devops course, and my short-term goal is to place in a reputed IT company, and my long-term goal is to achieve a good position in a reputed IT companies. And my hobbies are playing shuttlecock and chess. And my strength is I'm easily adapted to everyone, and I'm a quick learner. I'm a self-motivated person. That's all about me, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, Subhashni. Shall we move to the question?
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah. What is Kubernetes?
Okay. Kubernetes is an open source platform. It is an orchestration tool. It means it is a automatic deployment and scaling and managing the containerized applications. This is a Kubernetes, ma'am.
Okay. Why it is used?
For automatically deploying the applications and scaling the replicas and roll out and roll back to the versions. That's why you are using a Kubernetes, and it is a self-healing, ma'am.
Okay. Define a pod in Kubernetes.
Okay, ma'am. A pod is a small deployable unit. In pod, we can run one or more than containers in that pod. A pod is ephemeral in nature. If pod is destroyed, it automatically regenerates, ma'am.
Okay. What are the core components of Kubernetes architecture?
Kubernetes. A Kubernetes cluster consists of a two component, master node or control plane, or another one is worker node. In master node, it consists of a API server, etcd, and a scheduler and controller manager. In worker node, it consists of a kubelet, kubeproxy, and container runtime. These are all the whole cluster of the Kubernetes.
Okay. What is replica set?
A replica set is used to manage the number of pods running in that deployment. It ensures that how many pods are running in the deployment, ma'am.
Okay.
That replica set can be mentioned in that deployment YAML file, or we can create that YAML file using a normal imperative or declarative method, ma'am.
Okay. Explain the concept of namespace.
Namespace is a logical division within the cluster. It is used to assign the resources. Into a group. The group is called namespace. In an institution, there are multiple teams are the developer team, application team, multiple teams are there. We can identify the application by using the namespace, ma'am.
Okay, how do you expose a part to external traffic?
How do you expose
a part to the external traffic?
Okay, by using services. There are many services, ma'am. Services is to expose the application running on the pod from the outside, ma'am. By using a node board or load balancer or Ingress, we can expose the application from outside, ma'am. In node board, we can use a port. It ranges from 30,000. We can use that port and we can access the application from outside, ma'am. In load balancer, it has an external IP. Using that external IP, we can expose that application, ma'am. In Ingress also have an external IP, and using that external IP, we can expose the application, ma'am.
Okay. What are the common kubectl commands used for cluster management?
Okay. First, we want to list the pods or any service deployment. Means we are using that command kubectl get command, ma'am. Get pod or deployment or services, anything, ma'am. We can use kubectl get, and we want to know the logs. Means kubectl logs pod or pod name, deployment or deployment name. If any error made in the pod, means we can describe the pod, ma'am. Kubectl describe a pod and then pod name. If you want to delete the pod, means using the kubectl delete the pod and then then pod name. These are the basic commands used in Kubernetes, ma'am.
Okay, how do you troubleshoot issues with the Kubernetes deployment?
What, ma'am?
How do you troubleshoot issues with the Kubernetes deployment?
By using the kubectl log and then deployment name. By this way, I can troubleshoot the deployment, ma'am.
Okay, how do you delete a part forcefully?
Ma'am, I already told by using that command kubectl delete a pod name -force. It forcefully delete the pod, ma'am.
Okay, what is the Kubernetes cluster?
Kubernetes cluster. A cluster is the group of nodes, ma'am, that is called a cluster. The cluster consists of one master node and one or two worker node. That is say as a cluster, ma'am. And master node, it assigns the works to the worker node. In the worker node, do the work whatever the master node says, ma'am. These are the Kubernetes cluster, ma'am.
Okay. What are labels and selectors in Kubernetes?
Labels and selectors both are used to identify the resources within the cluster, ma'am. By using labels is the key pair value, ma'am. The selector allowing the matching the labels, we can identify the resources by using labels and selectors, ma'am.
Okay, what is the difference between horizontal pod autoscaling and vertical pod autoscaling?
Okay, horizontal pod autoscaling means we can adjusting the number of replicas whenever according to the CPU and memory usage, and then vertical pod autoscaling means we can adjusting only the CPU and memory usages. Not we can't able to increase the number of replicas, ma'am. These are all the differences between HPA and then VPA, ma'am.
Okay, what is the role of config map in Kubernetes?
Config map is to store the configuration data like environmental variable. It is non-sensitive, ma'am. When then compared to secrets, ma'am. Configuration data only stores the configuration data, ma'am. Stores the data.
Okay, explain the use of secret in Kubernetes.
Secret is a sensitive, ma'am. It can save the data like credentials like password, tokens. It is more secure, ma'am. That's why we are going with the secret instead of using a config, ma'am.
Okay. What is the role of deployment?
Deployment manage the number of replicas running on that pod, and it can scaling the replicas, and then after it roll out and roll back the versions of the application running in that node, ma'am.
Okay, what are the services in Kubernetes and what are the types?
Okay, ma'am. First of all, service is used to expose the application from outside. There are more services, ma'am. First, the cluster IP, and then node port and load balancer. Cluster IP is the internal communication between the pods within the cluster, ma'am. And then node port means we can expose the application from outside. If I create the node port means it assigns a port. Using that port, I can expose the application from outside. Load balancers is also same, ma'am. We can expose the application from outside using the external IP. These are the difference between node port and then load balancer, ma'am.
Okay. What is the difference between kubectl apply and kubectl create?
First, I creating a YAML file means after that I want to create that deployment means sorry, ma'am. First, I want to create a deployment means I need to create an YAML file. Then I apply to that YAML file using kubectl create that YAML -f indicates the file name, and then that file name means if I made any changes in that YAML file means I want to apply command. I want to use that apply command kubectl apply -f that file name and that YAML file name. If I use create option means it shows already exists, ma'am.
Okay, how do you list all the parts in a specific namespace?
Using command kubectl get pods -n. -n denotes the namespace, ma'am, and mentioning that namespace we are creating the pods, ma'am.
Okay, what is the purpose of Ingress?
Ingress is also like a load balancer. Instead of using a multiple load balancer, we can go with the Ingress. Ingress can expose the application from outside. When we create an Ingress, it creates a load balancer. The load balancer has an external IP. Using that external IP, we can expose the application from that outside. We can't able to buy a multiple load balancer. That's why we are going to Ingress, ma'am, because Ingress is a costly one.
Okay, how does etcd function in Kubernetes cluster?
Okay, ma'am. etcd is one of the component of the Kubernetes cluster. It is the brain of the cluster. It stores all the information about the cluster, ma'am. Cluster. If I want to see the any data of, about the cluster, means I go to the etcd database. I can easily see that any data about the cluster, ma'am.
Okay. What is the difference between node port and load balancer service?
Node port and load balancer both are the service. Service is used to expose the application from outside, ma'am. Node port have a port. It is ranges from 30,000, and then we can using that port. We can expose the application from outside. Using the load balancer, it has an external IP. Using that external IP, we can expose the application from outside, ma'am. Both load balancer and the node port are the service, ma'am.
Okay, what is the use of taints and toleration in Kubernetes?
Taints and tolerations. First, the taints are created to the nodes, and tolerations are created to the nodes pods. And if the nodes and tolerations are matched, the pod should be scheduled on the specific node. The taints and tolerations are not matched. It doesn't schedule the pods to the specific node, ma'am.
Okay, what is the command to view the logs from the pod?
For viewing the logs of the pod, we can using the kubectl logs pod and then pod name. It shows the logs of the specific pod, ma'am.
How does Kubernetes handle container scaling?
Container scaling using HPA. HPA means horizontal pod auto scaling. Horizontal pod auto scaling means if the CPU and the memory usage is high, we can it automatically increases the replica set. It is a horizontal pod auto scaling. It can adjusting the replica set, ma'am.
Okay, what are the core components of Kubernetes architecture?
Okay, ma'am. First, the Kubernetes cluster has a master node and worker node. In master node, there are the four components: API server, etcd, and then a scheduler and then controller. API server is the any request comes from outside. First, it receives the API server. Then the API server forwards to the another node, and then etcd is the cluster brain of the cluster, ma'am. It stores all the cluster information, ma'am. After that, scheduler, it schedules the pod. It schedules the pod to the node regarding to the resources, and then control managers. It ensures the nodes are in ready status or not ready status. And then in worker node, there are kubelet and kubeproxy container runtime. Kubelet ensures that the pods are running or not. If the pods are not running, it sends an alerts to the API server, ma'am. And then kubeproxy is the networking components. It facilitates the communication between the services and then pods. And then container runtime means it is needed to run the applications in that pod. That's it. That is the container runtime. These are the overall architecture of the Kubernetes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Subhashini. I have done with you.
Thank you, ma'am.